Hello and welcome to the Indie Beginning Podcast. This week, we speak to indie author Errin Stevens about her novel Updrift, Mermaids, using writing to suspend disbelief, and what she wishes she'd known about writing when she started. Errin's answer is one of the most inspirational shoulda-coulda-woulda answers that we've recorded for the Indie Beginning Podcast, so don't miss it. If you missed last week's episode, where Marie introduced readers to Updrift, or would like to hear the introduction once again before we begin, head over to acmbooks.com/indie-beginning, or find episode 35 on your favorite podcasting platform. So what did you think about the book, Marie?
I love it. I think it is a great beginning where you get some hints, some foreshadowing as to what's going on, but you really don't. The whole story isn't there right up front for you.
Yeah, I'm so used to a story taking a couple pages to get started.
Mm-hmm.
This one got started so fast, it took me a second to catch up. That was the only thing that happened to me. Other than that, I loved it too. I loved the beginning. I loved where I think it may be going. I like where in my head where I think it may go. So, yeah, I really did enjoy this beginning. Let's read some reviews.
Reading is Breathing says, well, this was the book to get me out of my reading slump. I started Updrift and found it beyond difficult to ever put it down. Other than Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, I haven't ventured much into waters of siren mythology, so I found the modern take of the folklore of Updrift to be fascinating and refreshing.
Yeah, and Bookaholic said, I have become a big fan of Erin's writing and work. I love books, and reading Updrift was exactly what I wanted. Took me by the hand and led me to a new world that was incredibly believable. Stevens is a stellar writer, to the point that I underlined several sentences and passages to look back on, which is always a good sign.
Ashley Nestler with Peachy Keen Review says, Updrift is a beautifully crafted romance novel that involves fantasy and a wider scope of events. One of my favorite things about this romance was that it wasn't just merely romance. Instead, it was a fantasy adventure as well as a mystery, and that added tantalizing substance to the story.
And an Amazon customer wrote, I thought the writer's imagination was distinctively refined as the Harry Potter series. If there had been a sequel, I would have picked it up immediately. I loved the bad guy, who was the best, and her ending blew me away. I will be looking for something else by this author. Well, anonymous Amazon customer, you're in luck. Updrift is part of a series. The sequel Breakwater is available right now for purchase, and the third Outrush will be coming out in the spring of 2019, so you'd better catch up. Marie and I noticed as we read this story that lately there's been like a rush to the water. There's the movies The Shape of Water, Meg, the Little Mermaid remake. We wondered what inspired Errin to head to the ocean with her novel Updrift.
Well, there were some personal motivations. Basically, my husband was having this was around the 2008, 2009 downfall turn in the economy. My husband's business was really going through a tough time, which, everybody had those types of things. And that, for the first time in my life, although I've always been an avid reader and reading has been my refuge, I just really flipped a switch and decided that writing would be my escape. So that was part of it. The other part was I've always had that Little Mermaid mythology from the original Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, which is just so heartbreaking. It's beautiful, but my God, she dies at the end, and her sisters. It's just terrible. It's just heartbreaking. It's so much more dark than what we're used to seeing in the cartoon versions. But that has always stayed with me. And I just decided that I really wanted to, I've always wanted to write. And I decided that just because I'd been thinking about it for, decades, that I would take a run at it. Also, and finally, the third reason I would say I did this, I took on this topic was, I love paranormal romance, paranormal suspense, and the genre felt approachable to me. I'm not going to be a literary fiction writer. It was like, I really want to try writing, but I don't want to be intimidated by the genre. So this genre felt approachable to me, and I had an affinity for it, and that's that.
Yeah, I remember when the economy hit like the slump and everybody was trying to figure out what they were doing. And I think even that time I started writing, you were starting to write. Um, I think as scary as that time was, it was one of those times where you're like, well, I have nothing else. This was a dream of mine. I might as well try it.
Right. And more people were doing, because it was a slump, things that were free, such as going to the beach, going to libraries. The libraries were increased.
Yeah, and nobody ever looks at writing as an entertainment. I mean, it's entertainment for yourself. I have fun doing it. You have fun. I mean, we love doing it. That's why we do this. Yeah, so get out there and write. I just think, when the economy is going down and you're forced to like think about other things, that's when a lot of the times you head to where you were afraid to go. And I know I was afraid to put my words on paper, but it was also a time when self-publishing became
more it was
easy.
like the roaring 20s.
More easy. I can't believe I just said more easy.
It was the roaring 20s of the if you compare it for indie authors, we had all this new technology and everything coming out.
And one of the things about Updrift that caught me is it deals with mythology and paranormal. And I'm a big fan. And as a lover of mythology and paranormal, I'm always amazed by how the stories stick with me through the decades. I wondered what Errin's thoughts were on why these stories and creatures stick with us, and which ones have stuck with her.
That is such a good question, because when I was doing, research for my novels, I found that siren or mermaid mythology literally exists among every civilization on the planet. So, disparate, as disparate as, the African continent to Iceland to, South America to Antarctica, which features in breakwater. Everybody has a siren or a mermaid mythology. So there must be something in our common to our humanity across the globe that appeals about these creatures. To me personally, the ocean is compelling, and there have been, outside of the mythology of mermaids, there have been tons of reputable and compelling and interesting studies about how being around water or contemplating water soothes the mind and really helps with mental health and happiness and other things. I mean, not that you need a study for that. I mean, just look at how expensive real estate is next to water and next to the ocean. And people are really drawn to it. And I'm really no different on that one. The ones that have stuck with me, I mean, honestly, there's, I guess, not every paranormal, I just haven't ever gotten, my head was never really turned by zombies. I don't know why. My son, oh my God, he is like all about zombies, or has been. But in this order: mermaids, fairies, witches, and vampires. There's something just really fun about those ideas when you attach them to, you attach human attributes and fantastical attributes from those groups. When you mix those together, you just get some really fun imaginings. And so that's what stuck with me.
Yeah, every civilization has like a mermaid or siren lore. I loved how she mentioned the commonality between the people across the globe, which made me a little bit more curious to learn what past civilizations thought about mermaids, and was shocked to learn that the favorite grandparent of mythology, the Greeks, originally considered mermaids half man and half bird. I never heard that before, where they thought it was a bird,
it was not water-based.
Yeah, not water-based. But they later had to change the mermaid lore due to due to traditions. Just like, I'm not trying to be controversial, but a lot of religions throughout history
have changed to go with the time.
Yeah, they've matched up dates, they've taken tales. I mean, it doesn't say anything less about them. It's just you have to incorporate with what you have around you.
Right.
We found some other interesting info.
Yeah, mermaids appeared for the first time painted on caves in the late Paleolithic area, the Stone Age, about 30,000 years ago. Or that Christopher Columbus himself wrote in his logbook that he had seen 3 mermaids, but they were not as beautiful as they are represented.
A lot of the time, sightings of like mermaids and other things. They tend to be naturally occurring creatures out there. So
Well, manatees for years were considered mermaids.
yeah, walrus. Well, manatees, that'll explain why Christopher Columbus thought they were so nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, they're beautiful when you know that they're just a creature in the water, but when you think they're a woman,
Yeah.
that is not a pretty lady.
Another topic that Errin Stevens mentioned was the mental health aspects of water, and we're heading back to the Greeks. They are the founders of the practice of hydrotherapy with their hot baths more than 2,500 years ago.
Yeah, flowing water, soothing sounds has long been associated with meditation, and meditation has many benefits for the human body and the human mind. The only exception are in times of extreme anxiety, but other than that, flowing water and meditation, they're really good for the soul. Speaking of mermaids and Updrift, we were wondering how Errin went about updating the mermaid mythos to fit into a modern story.
Well, okay, so being that I started reading fairy tales, the original fairy tales, and chiefly Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid when I was probably 8, I've had a long time to think about and play with those ideas in the context of my own coming of age, my own experiences as a woman in coming of age in this era. And I touched on this a little bit in an introductory letter I have in Updrift, but there's it's not a retelling. Updrift is not a retelling of the Little Mermaid story, and Breakwater is not a recycling of an existing story. But there's probably something of a utopian society that I attached to my mermaids. And, maybe trying to distill what I think would be the best of Cartesian. I think, therefore, I am really reasonable, rational, intellectual human culture, and how that combines with what we sense and think and feel. There's sort of a perfected, our higher selves are, in some ways, I made the mermaids our higher selves, or what I would see as our higher selves as a human society. And other than that, I just looked into, different mermaid mythologies, and I can just see, here's one. Probably the biggest one was, I don't know if you've seen the Discovery Channel, Animal Planet on the Discovery Channel, Mermaid, The Body Found. It's a mockumentary. It's so fabulous. It's beautifully imagined. It's beautifully shot. And I swear to God, you will watch that and come away believing in mermaids.
It's always nice to be able to go into your own personal library. This is where life's passion actually turns out to be a research project for your later years.
So speaking of beliefs, is there anything from the myth or books that you believe in or can't help but look out for? So what I'm saying is there any characters or creatures, or they're not real, but you're just outside going, he might be out there?
All of them.
All of them? Doctor Who?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's just it. My whole family is such a huge Doctor Who fan that our biggest thing is we like to believe in the unbelievable, just like Alice in Wonderland. I believe in 6 unbelievable things each day.
Yeah, not that we actually believe Doctor Who's coming down, but it's nice to
that'd be nice.
That would be nice. But when I'm driving late at night, I look in the woods and I know there's not going to be a ghost there, but you see that flash and you're like, maybe. Yeah. And I totally know it's not there, but it's kind of nice to play with your own head like that. And in updating the mythos to a modern day tale, and you're bringing those mythological creatures in there, we wondered how Errin creates a tale that allows readers to suspend disbelief. What tricks has she learned that takes a reader to a place where mermaids and merfolk are real?
That is also an excellent question. The assumptive premise for any writer, not just writers of fantasy or paranormal stories, is to bring, from the outset, you start, I think there's even a writing tactic called start in the middle. You start with where you want your reader to be. So in Updrift, I start in the water. There's pretty much no question for, the thoughtful investigative reader, when he or she looks into that opening chapter, you kind of can guess that there's a mermaid down there, and that Gabe has got, his family, there's something, watery about them. You start where, as you intend to go on, and you immerse, you immerse your reader right away into the context of the story. Then I think you layer in other elements that relate to everyday life, that relate to your life and to my life, but in the life of the reader, things you call on normal aspects of reality to make the irreality feel normal. And then thirdly, or coincidentally, you add in sense components. So what are they eating? What do they smell? What do they hear? Visually, what does the ocean look like? What is the scenery that around them that is compelling them or urging them toward a certain sensation or thought or action?
So she brings up a writing tactic called starting in the middle. By bringing in enough normal aspects of reality mixed with the wonder that's been created, it gives a myth a normal feel, bringing in the reader's senses right into the story. So like you incorporate just enough real things, sights, sounds, smells, whatever, and incorporate it with the mermaid, and then the mermaid all of a sudden, it's obvious, it's real. Mm-hmm. In an interview with writershelpingwriters.net, James Scott Bell talks about the mirror moment when writing from the middle. This is the point where the main character, taking a long, hard look at himself as in a mirror, asked, "Who am I? What have I become? Who am I supposed to be?" And from here, we know where he came from and where the rest of the story leads. So that's another way of starting from the middle, but on top of the way Errin described it.
Mm. And from a story point of view, this is the spot where you determine what the story is. Is there a main theme, a point of action, a love missed? What brought the story there, and where would the story go? Whether it's based on a character or a plot, write this down, get it out there.
So where do you like to start from when you're writing?
I pantless write, so it's a little different from here. I try to start from the beginning, but when I'm thinking of what I want to write about, it's just a random scene that I don't know where it's going to fit in the book.
See, I'm different every time I start writing. So, for a perfect example, the one I'm writing right now, it was just based on an idea, and there wasn't a beginning, middle, or an end. It was just literally an idea with a letter. And then I added to the letter, like the reason why he's writing the letter. And from there, I know the first part of the letter now and the last part of the letter. So I'm literally writing the first and the last chapters first, mm-hmm. and then I have to fill in the middle. So I do that. Whereas the first one that I wrote, that was based on a midpoint. I knew exactly what was going to happen in the middle. I knew the scene that was going to be major in the middle.
Yeah.
And I had to bring the character to the middle, and then I had to get him, and I kind of knew how it was going to end too. So I had a middle end. I think I always base my stories off the end, now that I actually think about it.
Yeah. See, and I don't know what turn, where it's going to go, what's going to happen until you do. Like when I write, when I'm at the climax of the story, that's the first time seeing it. I don't have any sort of...
See, I'm that horrible author that always I have to have that twist. So I know the twist at the end. Yeah. But even with that first one, Salvation, I knew how it was going to end, mm-hmm. but then even when I got to the end, I twisted it on myself.
Yeah.
And then I put a twist in the middle where even I was still shocked and like kind of excited that it happened. So I still knew the end, but I have to go from the end.
Yeah.
And as always, we asked our featured author what they would go back in time and tell themselves had they had a chance.
I guess, I started out, I pretty quickly when I started querying, I got put under an exclusive by Penguin US, and this was pre the merger between Penguin and Random House. They had me under an exclusive for 2 years and a non-exclusive for another two, so it was 4 years. And they ended up sending me a form rejection, which of course, I was heartbroken at the time, but I think the way the industry's been going, I guess this isn't the path that I would have foreseen for myself, but I know right now I'm very confident that this is the right path that I should be on with my stories. And I'm I'm much happier. I went through a small publisher that really wasn't right for me and wasn't actually a publisher, and then a mid-sized publisher, which was wonderful. And I've been invited back, but the genre fit just wasn't very good. So I guess I'm rambling, but it seems like if I had known the publishing path that I would take, you would think that it would be good to know that at the outset. But gosh, when Penguin said that they wanted to hang on to me and that I was worth considering for those 4 years, that gave me so much confidence. And during that time, I drafted Breakwater. I edited it significantly after going through my writing processes, but I drafted Breakwater. I started Outrush, which is going to come out here in a few months. And I wouldn't have probably had that confidence if they hadn't given me that look. Let's see. So if I could go back and tell myself anything about the writing process, there's going to be a lot of things. If you're a new writer, and by new, I mean you're within the first 5, maybe 10 years of serious writing. I know that just sounds hideous to say that, but obviously, if you're going to attempt a novel length project, you're going to know something about writing, about the technical aspects of it, and you're going to have perhaps refined to a certain extent your own voice. But no matter how far you've come, you're going to have to come a lot farther to get what you want, and you're going to learn a lot. Not stuff you maybe want to learn or expect to learn, but you're just gonna figure a lot out on the way. And that's okay. This sounds so smarmy, but it's part of the joy of the journey. I mean, you're gonna get to look back, after you've accomplished XYZ, 1 novel, 2 novels, 4 novels, 40, or whatever it is you're writing, and be so proud of your self-direction and your abilities and all that you've come through. I guess I'm not answering the question. Now I sound like a politician. I guess what I wouldn't have known, there isn't anything that, I just don't think there's anything that I should have known. I mean, I think I came to the table with all that I needed to start. And if I'd known too much, I would have been, I would have become distracted or not had the courage. So I think it's all good.
She wouldn't have had it any other way. Enjoy the process. She was able to hold on to the confidence she gained without being discouraged by the formal rejection.
That's such an important lesson, and not just for writing, but for life. Don't take rejection so...
No.
I mean, everybody can't see me just shaking my hand, but rejection is an awful thing.
Yep.
It feels awful. Personally, don't take it personally is, I guess, the best. Because they have 1,000 books that they're reading. They may not have even looked at yours. So if they haven't looked at yours, they haven't rejected you. Mm-hmm. They've just rejected reading your book. It says nothing about you as a writer.
Yeah, and I talked to an agency, one of the agents, and she said she gets on average 1,500 books a week.
Yeah, it's
and
just crazy.
She literally opens it, reads your query letter, looks at your name and the title of your novel, and that's all the time you get, unless she's interested.
Yeah, and we're lucky enough that we're such a small podcast that we are able to read all the submissions that get sent to us.
Just about, yeah.
We've read them all between you or I.
Yeah.
I've looked. But that being said, who knows what 2019 is going to bring?
Right.
We're always looking for new submissions. We could, tomorrow, 1,000 people may learn about our show somehow and then send us 1,000 submissions. We're not going to be able to read that. We only do 20 to 24 stories a year.
Yeah.
So I want to let you know that it's nothing personal even if we don't do it. So if we can't do it and they can't do it, just keep writing.
Yeah.
Just keep writing, keep sending. Publish it yourself if you have to.
Yeah, that's what she said too. She goes, you have to think of it from her perspective. How many books can she give the time that they deserve? Like when, before she retired, she had 12 clients.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't take on more than that because she has then 12 mouths, as she called it, mouths she had to feed. mouse. She had to find this for. She had to contact this for. How, and it was getting to the point where she wasn't giving them the attention they deserved.
Right. Well, that's our show for today. You can find Errin Stevens' book Updrift and Breakwater on Amazon and most other book sites. There are links in the show notes. Remember to leave a review for these stories as well as all of the stories you read. Reviews are such an important way to support an author, and they only cost but a few moments of time. In fact, reviews help podcasters as well. As a self-funded podcast, there really isn't money left over for advertising. Your reviews, word of mouth, and love of books is what keeps Indie Beginning running. If you've enjoyed this show, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast platform. All reviews in this episode were taken from Amazon. Music found in this episode was written and performed by Jazar, entitled Look Inside. If you are an indie author and would like to hear your story featured on the Indie Beginning podcast, go to acmbooks.com/submit for more info. I am your host, Benjamin Frankie.
And I'm Marie Cameron Frankie.
Asking everyone to read more books,
Be the best possible you.
and to simply enjoy this wonderful life. Thanks for listening. I had a segue and then...